Recording. Welcome to the District 45 Speech Contest Judges Training presented by Sharon Joseph. This workshop will help you understand how important the role of judge is in a speech contest. Our objectives today, we have three. One is to help you understand that you have an obligation as a judge to all contestants, the other judges, and the audience members, and anyone else associated with the contest. Two, to help you understand the rules of contest judging and separate them from the rumors. And three, most of all, to help you enjoy the role of being a judge. Our presenter today is Sharon Joseph, ACG, ALB. She has been a Toastmaster since 2007, but took a break for a few years. She has been active over the last 3 years, including participating in Toastmasters speech contests. She was the winner of the District 45 2017 Table Topics contest, and she is currently the District 45 Division E Director for the 2017 to 2018 year. Sharon is excited about giving this presentation and welcomes questions during the presentation. Please use the chat to type your questions, and then we'll turn on your mic when the timing is right. She's hoping that you share your experiences around contests and that judging during this presentation, around contests and judges. Let me start that over. She's also hoping that you share your experiences around contests and judging during this presentation so that we can all learn from each other. It's now up to you, Sharon Joseph.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I'm so honored to be here sharing my experience and the speech contest judges training. As I said earlier, I found as I was talking with people in my division that there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of unknowns around various topics in Toastmasters, and one of them, of course, was speech contest and how to judge a speech contest. The timing, of course, is appropriate because we are now into our humor speaking contest and our evaluation contests. I believe, I know a lot of clubs in my division are doing their clubs right now and are moving into area for October with, of course, our district contest happening November 3rd and 4th in Fairleigh, Vermont. Very exciting. So the agenda I have for today is we're going to talk about the judges training, a lot of information that we can provide in there. I have a question and answers section, and I also have a section on case studies. I have a lot of material here. If we get through the material, that's great. If we don't get through the material, that's okay too, because the dialogue, I believe, is very important in terms of sharing. And it's not simply me talking, you listening. It's we're gonna share as we go through. So why is judges training so important? Because as a judge, you want to create a fair and fun contest. Toastmasters needs to be fun. I'm the type of person, I already have a job during the day. When I go to my Toastmasters in the evening or on the weekends, whatever the case may be, I want to be able to have fun, to learn, to grow. And when I go to a contest, I also want to understand that I'm going to have fun. The contest is going to be fair. Judges need to understand their obligations. So when you become a judge, there's a responsibility that you're taking on, and it's important you understand what your obligations are to the people involved in the contest. And also, the judges training, I want to start separating the truth from the rumors. There's a lot of misinformation, as I said before, that is passed around. And it's simply a matter of picking up the rule book and understanding what the truth is. And if you can't figure out the rule book, call Toastmasters International. I have dealt with many corporations over the years, and Toastmasters International, very responsive, very clear in their answering, and if they don't have clarity, they will go find clarity. So I encourage you strongly to talk to Toastmasters International people as well. They will help you sort it all out. The purpose of a speech contest. Why do we have them? They provide an opportunity to practice competitive speaking, provide interesting educational programs for members and the public. We need to start reaching out to the public and inviting them over. We had last year in Division E a full house in our international speech contest. What a difference it makes when the public is there, the house is full, and you're speaking to a group of individuals who are very interested in the goings-on. It brings the excitement level up. It brings, as a speaker, it brings my attention level up and my desire to do really, really well, even more than I would have done without the general public in a full house. And it provides an opportunity to learn. So as a judge, as I'm watching individuals deliver their speeches, deliver their evaluations, I'm learning too. And I'm picking up nuggets from individuals and incorporating them into the speeches that I will give in the future. We have such talented people in our division, in our district, and we're very blessed to be able to watch them give these incredible speeches. And as a judge, not only do I have to listen because I'm judging them, but I also get to learn from them. So that's the purpose of a speech contest. Any questions or comments that you'd like to make at this point? True or false? Let's go ahead and start using our chat. So if you have access to a keyboard, start typing. If you've got voice, start speaking. I've incorporated true or false questions throughout because I want people to understand or find out where you think your knowledge is. Judges must complete judges training before being able to judge at a contest. I've heard this before. Is this true or is this false? Dave Mills, false. Stefan, false. Pam, false. Karen, false. Fazal, true. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. The answer actually is it's false. Yeah, Jeff, I wish it were true as well. However, it is false. Judges are simply encouraged to attend judges training. However, it is not mandatory. There are different rules for different contests. So once you get into the International Speech Contest area, there's different rules. Again, check the rule book. However, judges are encouraged to attend judges training, but it is not mandatory. Well done, everybody. Well done. When you talk about judges having an obligation, the importance of reading the rule book and understanding what your obligation is very important. So you have an obligation to contestants, you have an obligation to Toastmaster International because you are representing them. You have an obligation to the audience, and you have an obligation to yourself and fellow judges as well. Why is that important? Because contestants are working hard to create the best speech they possibly can. They have goals, they have different aspects of their personal growth that they're doing in a speech contest. You don't enter a contest lightly. So when people are entering contests, you know that they've got an ulterior motive in mind. They want to grow, they want to learn. And so they're entitled to a professional performance by each judge. They deserve fairness and impartiality, and really we owe it to them to give them nothing less. For Toastmasters International, it has a reputation for speech training, excellence in meetings and speech contests, and when you have bad judging, it really does leave a bitter taste in people's mouths, especially if you have the general public there. Because word, of course, as we know, negative travels very quickly. It travels at the speed of light. Good travels very, very slowly. So we need to be very careful about how we represent Toastmasters International. The audience is there for a good speech contest. The room buzzes. If you have 5 speakers and they all deliver their best speech, everybody starts to buzz and everybody starts to talk, and it becomes an experience that you're going to share with other individuals. And when you start to hear about Toastmaster contests, you're going to want to go because you know that you're going to hear some great speeches and you know that you're going to have a great experience. And finally themselves. So as a Toastmaster, you as a judge make a personal commitment to self-improvement, and you do that by dedicating yourself to ensuring that you make the correct decision when you're judging a contest. Now, I see some Heather Perkins. As a chief judge, you can just not pick people who haven't been trained. That's very true. There are different environments, however, where you don't have the plethora of people or the breadth of people to be able to choose from. So there are times where you're going to, unfortunately, end up with people who do not have the experience and who don't have training ahead of time. What I also found, and it was Pam who mentioned it on a call that I had with her earlier today, there's a lot of clubs who are not even aware that this type of training exists. So that's another reason why these types of webinars become very, very important. But that's a great point. And Anne, you made a really good point about reading the rule book. That rule book is mandatory. If you're going to judge a contest, please, please, please download the rule book, read it, hand it out to your members who are going to be judging as well, so that they understand the rules and are not going by rumors. What is the difference between judging and evaluating? Judging versus evaluating, and Stefan, you're asking a great question. Would you pick training over experience? Personally, I'm an experienced girl. If somebody has the experience, they learned it from somewhere, they've been in there. However, I also want to temper that with training, because oftentimes I found, even in my own case, where I do have the experience, but sometimes I forget the basic rules, and I lose that if I don't review the rule book or get the refresher training over and over again. So I find that I love the experience, but it needs to be balanced with actual training so that I'm not losing sight of the basics. And one of the basics is the difference between judging and evaluating. So a judge selects a winner, and an evaluation provides appraisal and advice. And it's really important that we understand as judges that our decisions are confidential, and we do not explain our decisions to contestants or tell them how they can improve. That's an evaluation. And speakers have the option of choosing another Toastmaster to do an evaluation of their speech, of course. However, as a judge, you are not evaluating, you are looking for a winner. And of course, that's based on the criteria on your judge's ballot. All right. Any questions or comments so far? I love the chat. Yep, absolutely. Both are important. Yep, thank you very much for that dialogue. I really appreciate it. True or false? All right, folks, get ready in the chat room. Here we go. Another question. Judges can provide evaluations to the contestant after the winner has been announced. So after all is said and done, we've got a winner, and now a contestant comes to us and says, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Can we provide evaluations? And a whole whack of falses are coming up. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's absolutely right. Thank you very much for that answer. Ta-da-ta-da. Judging decisions are confidential. I was privy to a conversation, unfortunately, it was privy to a conversation where a judge approached a contestant and said, it was so close. You were really close in second place. And immediately I jumped in and said, that's confidential. You are not allowed to reveal that information. So we have, again, if we are privy or we witness that, it is really up to us to jump in and say, no, you can't do that. You cannot do that. And we're going to talk about the ballot, and we're going to talk about the guide later. And of course, that too is confidential. So very good. Thank you very much for that. Question: what are the characteristics of good judges? What do we look for when we talk about a good judge? Objective? Yes. That is one of the aspects of judging that's really that can be difficult. If you cannot be objective or impartial, take yourself out of the judging role. You cannot have, if you have a personal conflict with someone, if you do have a bias against an individual for any reason, take yourself out of the judging role. You cannot do it. It's really important that you do that. Hi.
Yeah, Sharon, I'd like to just jump in and reemphasize that point because it is very important. Human beings, I think we are very bad at knowing when we have bias. Frankly, we always do. We don't think that we're biased, but our concept of objectivity is slightly different than another person's objectivity. So can you talk about some recommendations for when you know that you have a personal preference or dislike of a person to, have that integrity to step out? But what about other times when you suspect it, or how can you combat that?
That's a really good question. Let me think about that for a minute. So if anybody else has any ideas on the chat, let me know. I go by emotion. So I'm somebody who lives in the emotional body quite a lot. And if I think about a conflict I've had with an individual, I self-check. Does that conflict, when I think about it, does it make me angry? And am I feeling something about it, or am I okay with it? And if I'm okay with it, then I know that I'll be able to go in. If that person is a contestant, I'll be able to go in and judge impartially. If I'm still riled up about it, I know that I'm not good. I know I need to take myself out and not be a judge, be a chief judge, be a contest chair, do any other kind of role, but not be a judge at all. And it's a self-regulating type of mechanism that you have to have. And I got to say, a couple of years ago, I competed in a contest, and I knew that I was going to lose the contest. And it wasn't because I wasn't any good, and it wasn't because everybody else was better, but it was because of the bias that I knew existed because of the other contestants. And that's okay. I knew that going in that was going to happen, but I did it anyways because as a contestant, I knew I needed the experience, I knew I needed to grow, and I knew that at some point the playing field would level itself out. So great question. It's a hard one to answer, but when you get people understanding that they need to self-regulate and pull themselves out, then hopefully they will do that. But again, Jeff, you made a great point. We lie to ourselves. No, I'm not biased. I'm going to be fine. Everything's fine. But yet at the end of the day, when you're looking at your judge's scorecard, are you truly being objective and are you truly being impartial? And that's something that we need to check in with ourselves on, because we can lie to everybody around us and say, yep, I'm fine, I'm impartial, but really at the end of the day, are you really? So a great question, tough answer. There's really I don't think there's really a clear answer on that. Yeah. So I see objective, impartial, have a good ear. Absolutely have a good ear. You need to be a good listener. Dave Mills, consistent on marking the ballot. If you're going to judge a certain way, that's fine, but judge everybody the same way, on the same criteria, using the same method. I don't know if you know, whatever method you use, whatever scoring, make sure that it's equal across the board. So good judges are accurate. You're going to want to take notes. You're going to want to complete your judge's form correctly and make the correct decision. Judges are fair. They need to be impartial. If you're affiliated with anybody, if you're good friends with somebody and you know you're going to put them above everybody else just because, you're out. Age, sex, race, creed, national origin. I mean, these are all normal, how do I say this? So these are all different criteria or different standard practices. So it doesn't matter where you come from. You can come from Jupiter, you could be purple, I don't care. It's the content that you're delivering, the speech you're delivering on the day. Is that worthy of the win? Then I give it to you. If it's not worthy of the win, then I don't. That's fair and simple. Trustworthy, again, all contestants are entrusting you to give them a fair shake on the day. And that's part of it as well, is a speaker may not do well that day, but you've heard them speak before and you know they can do a great job, so you're just going to give it to them. No, it doesn't work that way. The day of the delivery that they have on that day is what you judge them on. Being knowledgeable, knowing the current rules, studying the rules before each contest. We're going to talk about the judges' ballot later and the judging criteria. I question how many people actually read that judging criteria so they know what they're actually judging on. So that's really very important as well. And being a good listener is key. Obviously, you don't want to become distracted by anything around you. You want to focus on the speaker and, again, judge them based on what the judging criteria is for the contest that you're judging for. Any questions? All right, so we talked about this barriers to good judging. Different aspects of the contest and of who we are as humans, as Jeff said, we need to be very aware that there are some things that we do as individuals that prevent us from being a good judge. One of the comments that people will often make as a contestant is, I drew number 1 of 6. Nobody's going to remember my speech. I'm not going to win. And somebody was talking about statistically speaking, the person in first place that speaks first wins 10%. I don't know. He was going on about some stat, and it really got me thinking that that may play a part in it if the judge is not a good listener. So the speaking position should not in any way deter from the individual getting the placement that they deserve based on their presentation. So we really need to be very aware of short-term memory, and people may remember the beginning of a list better than the middle, or the end better than the middle, or, you know, so we need to be really aware that we have to pay attention closely to every contestant, and from there, and make sure that we make the right decisions. Champion the underdog. Out in life, I'm all about the underdog. Yay, I want the underdog to win when I'm watching a football game or a hockey game. You know, I want the underdog to win, but in this case, we have to be real careful. This is not a sport on TV. This is people in front of us who are giving a speech, and while we do want people to do well, as a judge, we need to be absolutely impartial and remember that the judging is there to pick a winner, and the winner is the person who gives the best speech on the day. The halo effect was an interesting one. When I was reading through the material, I saw this and I thought, what is a halo effect? And it's the inclination we have to admire a person's actions, the work they do, because they have other admirable qualities, or they always doing so well, and they're my mentor, and they're fabulous and great. So we put a halo on top of their head, and when it comes to them giving a speech, they could totally fall on their face, but we're going to give them a great mark anyways because we adore this person. We have them up on the pedestal, and as humans, we tend to do that. So we need to be very clear and very careful that we're not providing a halo for people when they're giving their speeches. Everybody is the same as everybody else. And then you have the reverse halo effect, where you disapprove of a person's actions, of what they do, and they're totally unrelated to the speech that they're giving. And again, when you're talking about the content of a speech, you don't have to agree with what they're saying. That's not, your opinion is not in there to agree or disagree with what they're saying. It's the content. How are they saying it? Are they making a good point? Do they have a clear opening? Do they have a closing? Do they have content? Are they making their point? And so on. So we have to be very careful about that as well. And second time around is the aspect of somebody who's competing at different contest levels, and you're seeing them compete year over year, and you remember how great they've been in some of their speeches that they give, and so on. And so you have to remember not to compare the current performance with what they've done in the past. Right, so it's one of the things that you see in sports a lot. My sister was a champion diver, but before she hit that level, there were other champion divers before her, and judges knew that the individuals diving are great. They miss a dive, but they still get decent marks. Why? Because, well, we know that they can do this dive. We've seen them do it before. And then she would get up there as a newbie, do a great dive, and get lousy marks until she got known. And then all of a sudden she started getting the great marks, and the other newbie who did a great dive was getting lousy marks. So that's that second time around that we have to be really careful with regards to a speech contest. Not the norm is when an individual believes that the majority of others share their own opinion, regardless of what that opinion is. So if it's not the norm, you've got to make sure that you do not judge a contestant harshly because they don't have the same opinion as you. And of course, there's prejudice and personal preference. We need to make sure we are totally objective to the judging criteria, make sure that we actually don't take it personal, and that we make sure we make the right decision. So any questions or comments on this? So let me see. Yeah, swim judges do need training. There are a few conversations about that. Jeff, that's a great comment. Heather, there are some who think that someone shouldn't continue to compete, so second time around could adversely affect them. Yeah, again, that's another unfortunate an unfortunate thought process, Heather. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think everybody should continue to compete. That's how you get better. If somebody falls on their face, which I've done before, you get up, you get better, you get encouraged, you go back to your mentors and say, okay, where did I fall down? And they will share with you. But it's not fair for somebody to tell me that I should not be competing. And if they're a judge and I see them being a judge, then I will take action to ask them to move out as a judge, because I have the right to do that. And it's really important that we keep our personal opinions to ourselves and remove ourselves from the equation if we can't. So yeah, great point, Heather. You know, when you're dealing with humans, there's a lot of things that happen. So we take that into account. And hopefully when you are a Toastmaster and understand your role and what it is, then hopefully you make sure that you're doing the best you can for everybody, regardless of personal feelings. All right, know the rules, prevent misconceptions. Again, that's a big part of the reason why I'm doing this presentation. Because of some of the rules and regulations that apparently exist out there that are really not existing out there, but are being propagated from one group of Toastmasters to another. So I want to make sure that we're clear on this. So here is another true or false. Are you ready? The speech contest rule book is protocol and applies to all official Toastmaster speech contest. True or false? Yep. And extra bonus points for the person who can tell me what item number this is at Toastmasters International. You don't actually win anything, you just get fake bonus points just because. Okay, does anybody know what the item number is for the rule book? Jeff, you're cheating. Look at toastmasters.com/rulebook. You're cheating. It's item number 1171. Thank you, Ileana. There you go. Heather got it too. Very nicely done. So true. The modifications to the rules may only be made through administrative protocol review process. Exceptions shall not be permitted. Please, please, please take a look at your rule book, and it does change from year to year. Heather Perkins did a fabulous job putting together. I don't know how long you've been doing it, Heather, but it's an amazing document, and I thank you very much. I used it in our club contest. It is the District 45 contest workbook, and she has organized everything in a very logical format. So the role you're playing, you can go to your section and know what it is your responsibility is and are and everything else. So thank you very much for that. Very right. Now, judges' certification of eligibility and code of ethics. This applies to all contests. You need to complete it as a judge, and you need to complete one for each contest. So if you are judging the evaluation contest and the humor speech contest, then you fill in one for evaluation and one for humorous. I also ask judges, if I'm a chief judge, to read the eligibility and the judge's code of ethics. It's very important that everybody understand. And when you're signing at the bottom, you're agreeing to the fact that you will be ethical in your judging and you are eligible to judge as well. So that's what that looks like. Now, the judge's guide and ballot, I'm going to spend a few minutes here. So in Appendix C in this slide deck, there are a list of slides and the different criteria, because the criteria changes depending on the contest, and that makes total sense. On the judge's guide and ballot, the criteria is explained. Judges' official ballots must be signed. When I give my judges a form, the first thing I tell them to do is sign it. If it's not signed, it will be voided. Votes must be cast first, second, and third, or the ballot will be voided. Again, so if you have two contestants, obviously you're going to have a first and second place, and you have to nominate first and second. There can be no tie. If you have three or more contestants, you have to vote or cast a vote for first, second, and third place on the ballot, or it will be thrown out. So this is what the judge's guide and ballot looks like. At the top, now, can anybody tell me what contest this ballot is for? And this is something that a lot of people overlook. So what contest is this ballot for? I'm so happy to see the answer. Evaluation. How do you know? It's at the top. Evaluation, contest, judge's guide, and ballot. A lot of people miss that. So it's very important that you check that. So the judge's guide at the top, it's used to help you select a winner. That is confidential, and you must destroy it after the contest. You are not allowed to share that information. How you use that judge's guide is up to you. You can place your names right to left, left to right. You can use that judging criteria if you want. You can use other numbering systems. But again, if you use a numbering system or a judging method, as David mentioned earlier, if you apply it to one, you have to apply it to everyone. The actual ballot itself is at the bottom. So when you get your judge's guide and ballot, sign it right away at the bottom. And when it's time to submit your ballot, you cut off the top part and you destroy that. And the bottom part generally goes into an envelope. That's how we run our contest. And that is given over to the counters. You must list first, second, and third if there are three or more speakers. No ties are allowed. If you have a tie in the top, you've got to break it. and you have to find one, your ballot has to be signed and it must be legible. If they can't read it, then they don't know who you're voting for. So again, your ballot will be destroyed and voided. Any questions on that?
Hi, Sharon. I would like to point out that you had mentioned using different numbering systems. It's very important that for a district judge or district contest, we should be using the weighted criteria on the ballot. And the way
Yes.
you judge it,
Yes.
and the way you count it could be a little bit different, but it should be weighed. For instance, I don't remember the exact weighting, but this one is like 50% is analytical quality.
Yes, yes, that's exactly right. You're absolutely right, Jeff. Thank you very much for making that clear. The numbering system that's there, the excellent, very good, good, and fair, that can change. However, you're right, in the International Speech Contest, content is 50%. You've got the second one, I can't remember, I apologize. Delivery is 30%. And then you've got language is 20%. So that's absolutely critical that you follow that. You could have someone who has a flashy delivery and they overwhelm and they wow you. But if their content is not there, then they would only get 30%, 100% in the delivery, which is 30% of the final mark. So that's a great point, Jeff. Thank you for clarifying that. Anybody else have any comments or questions there? Okay.
Sharon, it's Heather. Sure.
Yes, Heather. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, and this is where I find that we seem to go most astray. Like, for example, the evaluation ballot that you showed and that we're going to be having, 30% is recommendation. I have seen people win and they've not had a single recommendation. Okay,
yes.
They're being scored.
Yes.
They should be then being scored out of 70. I've seen
exactly.
people with no recommendations and no summary, and they win. If there are no recommendations as a judge, you should give somebody 0. If there's no summary, you should give them 0.
Agreed. Yeah.
They didn't do it, and that's where we're not doing. And I have seen far too many with international and humorists where the delivery is great, or the content is really, really good. Delivery is adequate, but not, doesn't blow people away. And the person that wins is the one with the really great delivery, but weak content. Well, that shouldn't be happening either.
Absolutely.
And that.
Yep. Did I lose you? Heather, I think I lost you. Oh, there you
go. No, I'm still here.
Yeah, absolutely great point. And that's, again, part of the education as people who are being judges. It's very important that we educate them. A flashy delivery does not mean that they have great content or even great languaging. So you need to be absolutely clear that you're going to give the appropriate percentage on what is the judging item on that ballot. Great.
And again, back to the evaluation contest, there is absolutely nothing on the contestant, the evaluator, using body language, vocal variety. You are allowed to stand behind the lectern and use your notes. But again, I will see far too often that the winner is somebody who gets out there and does a show, has a weak evaluation. But, oh boy, they do a good job of presenting that weak evaluation.
Exactly.
And it doesn't count for anything on the judging form, but yet it seems to sway judges.
Yep, exactly. Yep, that's a great point. And the education of that is so important. And that's why I encourage everybody to be a contestant, because when you're a contestant and you're on the other side of the game, when you become a judge, you have that awareness that, well, wait a minute, this is not right, and something I need to make sure as a judge that I'm fulfilling my responsibilities of impartiality and making sure that I'm judging based on the percentages that are laid out and the judging criteria that is there. And one point that is really interesting as I was digging through all of the judging material is we give you the judging criteria. It's not a guessing game. And it's not I'm going to make this up as I go. We give you the judging criteria. This is what you're looking for. This is what people are being judged on. And right below it is the code of ethics. So if you don't remember what your obligation is to the people in the contest, here it is. And this is what we're looking for as part of our judging criteria. And this goes back to Jeff's point about if you cannot be impartial and if you cannot disconnect your emotion from the actual activity of judging, then you need to step out. And you need to be honest with yourself and say, no, I'm stepping out because I know I can't be impartial. And this is the education. So we're going to continue to do this kind of training over and over and over again. And repetition is everything. I think the average human needs to hear something 7 times before it actually sinks in and they start to understand it. So that's why it's important that we take this kind of a training back to our clubs and start training individuals right from the get-go, that this is how the judges done. When I started to judge, I never even knew this training existed. Nobody trained me. It's here you go, be a judge. Okay. And I had no idea. It's like, well, I like their speech the best, but I didn't understand the criteria. I didn't understand how the ballot worked or anything like that. So I probably didn't do due diligence because I'm emotional. So all you have to do is make me cry and you win. I mean, that's just the way I was and what I knew about judging. So it's really important that we continue the dialogue with individuals to make sure that they understand the impartiality, being a good listener, and knowing the judging criteria and judging based on that. Yeah, great point, Heather.
And part of that too, though, comes down to maybe getting to this, but the role of the chief judge in doing the briefing. Again, I've seen too many circumstances where it's like, oh, you've all judged before, you don't really need a briefing. Well, they may have judged, but that doesn't mean they know. And I don't care how many times somebody has judged.
Absolutely.
They need the briefing.
They do. We need the reminders. We have so many things on the go, so many things in our head. Sorry, Jeff, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say this. I mean, these are all very good points. I think that it highlights another need for our district, and I think we'll have a separate training specifically on chief judging. I think that's an excellent idea on some tools and techniques so that chief judges can select judges with the correct objectivity and help to make sure that judges are judging correctly. So I think this is definitely a topic that we need to do more training on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I've just noted that down. Thanks, Heather. And of course, seeing that you put your hand up and you spoke, I'm going to come to you. But I would like to get your insights and the comments that you have on that. So absolutely. Thank you very much for that. For the judge's guide, judges are allowed to take notes. You're allowed to pull out a notebook, take notes on how people are doing based on the criteria for your ballot. Use the suggested points in the criteria. Use other point values, pluses and minuses, and so on, but make sure that whatever method you use, you apply the same judging method to all contestants. Here we go. Get ready on your keyboards. Judges must take into account the timing of the speech. Go. True or false? Yep, absolutely, folks. That's a definite false. Timing of speeches are the sole responsibility of the timers. As a matter of fact, Erin, you're absolutely correct. In our contests, as much as possible, we hide the timers from the judges. So the judges do not see the timing cards, the green, yellow, and red, or the lights, or whatever mechanism you're using, because it's not the judge's responsibility. That falls solely into the timers. So if possible, again, there's a lot of environments where it's not possible, but if absolutely possible, make sure that your judges do not see the timing and what's going on there. So now we're going to start to get into quizzes. All right, you experts. Question number 1. What are the reasons for which a contestant may be disqualified? Great point, Aaron. Audio cue. If you have an individual who requires an audio cue, whether they're visually impaired and so on, then you obviously must give it to them. And at that point, then your judges will know, and that's okay. So it's not going to be the end of the world if they know that, but obviously we need to serve our members as much as possible based on their abilities or disabilities or whatever they need. So that's a great point, Aaron. A reason they could be disqualified. Yeah. Over time, unoriginal, not original, eligibility, originality, timing, yes. Miss Heather knows it. Eligibility, originality, and timing. A plagiarized speech, absolutely. So it's very important for, as the contest chair, to make sure that all of the contestants are eligible, and there's a number of criteria. Again, I'm going to point you back to the rule book. Go check the rule book for eligibility. Originality, only up to 25% of a speech can be quotes from other individuals, from other sources, and so on. The rest has to be original, and of course, if they go over time. So question number 2, this one is a little involved. Yes, and if they have competed in more than one area, that's very important as well. They are not eligible if they've competed in more than one area. All right, what steps are followed in the event of a protest on originality? So there are actually 6. I've put them into 6 steps. So prior to the announcement of the contest winner and alternative, this is important. Once the announcement is made, no protests are allowed. Judges' decisions are final. Once, prior to the announcement of the contest winner, any judge or contestant, that should say contestant, not contest, may protest to the chief judge and or contest chair. The contest chair notifies the judges, who then gather to discuss the speech in question. Judges call the contestant in to discuss the allegation. The contestant is then asked to leave the room, and the judges discuss and vote. If a majority of judges vote to disqualify the contestant on the basis of originality, the contest chair will notify the contestant of the disqualification, and all decisions are final. Now we are heading up to the top of the hour, so I'm going to do question number 3, and then we will wrap it up. What happens if, out of 7 judges, you have 4 judges who sign and print their names on their ballots? 1 judge only prints his name on his ballot but does not sign it. 1 judge neither signs nor prints his name on his ballot, or 1 judge only signs her name on her ballot. What happens? What is the outcome of that scenario? The ballot gets tossed. Which ballot gets tossed, David? As a matter of fact, this is a bit of a trick question. Stefan has it. 5 ballots will be counted. Unsigned ballots will not. So the middle 2, the judge who only prints his name and does not sign it, that ballot is out. The 1 judge that neither signs nor prints his name on his ballot, that ballot is out. The last one is in because she signed it. Okay? She signed it, so that ballot is counted. All right, so with this, I do have one more question. Do we have time? Oh yeah, here. What happens if a judge leaves a 3rd place winner's name empty on a ballot and there are 5 contestants? I've already talked about this one. What happens with this one? Yeah, it's tossed. It's not counted. You have to pick 1, 2, and 3. No ties allowed. In summary, We are 3 minutes from the top of the hour, and I do appreciate everybody coming and participating in this workshop. I'm very excited about delivering it. We did highlight throughout this conversation areas for improvement, sounding familiar, areas that we can focus on to ensure that we are giving our contestants the absolute best contest that we possibly can, making sure that we're objective, we are choosing the best speech of the day, and also in ensuring that we honor our ethics as a judge in representing Toastmasters International, the other individuals who are putting on the contest itself, and of course, our contestants. With that, are there any, can I review the protest? Absolutely. Are there any other questions in the chat? Did I miss anything? All right. Our next, before everybody leaves, our next webinar will be on November 12th. That's Sunday, November 12th. We are looking to hold these the first Sunday of the month, but of course, the first Sunday in November, we're all going to be in Fairlea, Vermont, aren't we? I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you're all going to be there because I would love to chat with you all individually. So November 12th on the Sunday, topic is to be determined, and if you can let your friends know that we're doing this, it would be awesome.
So Sharon, there are a couple of questions that would probably be good for us to go over before you leave. One
Sure.
is the steps for the protest. This is specifically for protests on originality. There's no voting that's required if you're concerned about eligibility. There you have to do some research to find out, is a member in good standing? Is the club in good standing? Are they running for office? So district officers cannot be allowed. And then there was also the point during the discussion that folks that have competed in another area are not allowed to compete again. So those are things that don't really require voting, but they definitely require integrity.
They do, and that's where, coupled with the chief judge doing a good job with the with coaching of the judges prior to a contest, the contest chair also has a very important responsibility, and part of that is ensuring the eligibility of the contestants in being able to participate as well. So that is another important topic that we can also cover as well. Any guidance for timers, Stefan? There are none in the rule book. Yep, great question. Make sure that you're timing people properly. I was in a contest where the timer forgot to time me, and I just went talking on and on and on and on. So are there any guidance for timers? That's, again, part of the responsibility of the chief judge to make sure that they advise people on how the timing actually works. But that's a great point, and something we can do there too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will say that there is good guidance in the district manual that Heather's put together. Her manual does not supersede, it doesn't, it's very consistent with the rule book, but she does give some additional guidelines on, for instance, we have 2 timers because we want to have both of them with stopwatches to make sure that they're both actually timing and they're checking each other in terms of making sure the signals are delivered to the contestant. Other than that, there is a bit of subjectivity as to when the speech actually begins and when it actually ends. So
yes, exactly.
If you're off by a few seconds, that can definitely be tough, but it's, to some degree, it's up to the contestants to make sure that their speech doesn't put the timers in a position where they're counting hairs of a second.
Yeah, exactly. And Anne mentioned this question that I didn't actually get to in terms of the presentation, which is the speaking area. The speaking area is can be designated for a contest. It doesn't have to be, but it certainly can be. And if someone steps out of that designated area, are they disqualified? And the answer is no. They're actually not, because it's not one of the criteria for disqualification, because the criteria for disqualification is eligibility, originality, and timing. So judges cannot disqualify a contestant. However, they could make this rule a violation take it into consideration and awarding lower marks, again, at the discretion of the judges. So great question there. All right. I think, did we handle all the questions, Jeff? I think we're doing okay.
I think so. I don't see any new questions. I believe it's time to thank you, Sharon, for putting this together.
You're very welcome.
And doing a fantastic job of guiding us through our first online training. We will definitely continue doing these, and as Sharon mentioned, if you want to be part of it, please contact me or her, and we will get you signed up, and maybe you'll get to host a webinar in the near future. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.